The CBS New York Book Club has a powerful new memoir that explores a black family's past and how this nation's racial history affected their lives. It's called I Am Nobody's Slave, How Uncovering My Family's History Set Me Free. The author, Lee Hawkins, is a former Wall Street Journal reporter and Pulitzer Prize finalist. He's here to talk about this book. I mean, it is compelling, it is thought-provoking, it's deep. Why did you decide to put this down on paper?
I call this book a love letter to my father, who was raised in Alabama during Jim Crow. And when I was a kid growing up in Minnesota, he didn't talk much about Alabama, which is like a lot of people whose family members live down south. They didn't like to talk about it. And later on, when Ancestry.com came out and I took a DNA test, I started to share with my father some of the things that I was finding out about the family. And he opened up and did 4 years worth of interviews. And it was just to pretty much help both of us understand our family history and how slavery, Jim Crow, and the Great Migration impacted us.
Lee, can I ask you, it's very personal, and you talk about growing up and having to deal with severe punishments from your parents.
Yes.
But yet you say your dad was your best friend.
Yes.
I mean, tell us about that connection and how did you come to terms with all of this?
I think one of the most complicated relationships in the American story is the black father and his son. Because of the underlying political, social, and economic injustices that we've faced over the years, when you raise a boy, you're always worried for him. You're always wanting him to be careful. My father was very hyper-cautious, hyper-vigilant because he was raised in Alabama. I didn't understand that growing up. And so corporal punishment was a part, like many American families, a part of my life. And it was something that at the time wasn't problematic to me because I just thought that was what had to happen. When I got older, I started to reflect on how kind of messed up it is that in 17 states, corporal punishment is still legal in schools, and that in the South especially, it's a practice, and it came from slavery, and I wanted to go and prove that, and that's what I did in this book.
In the book, you talk about how your father never wanted to talk about growing up and how that was so important for you to investigate it and research it yourself and really find out what was going on.
Yes, and I found out that since 1837, I've had a murder in my family every generation, all the way through 2015. And that really started to help me understand that when I learned that both of my father's grandfathers and my grandfather was murdered in Alabama as a result of systemic discrimination and racial violence, I understood my father's fear for me. We were able to really have a powerful relationship. And this book shows that evolution. And I challenge people to use genealogy to heal family traumas. I call it family unity through understanding roots and experiences, the future method. And what it pretty much tells people is that when you dig into your great-great-grandparents, you determine a lot and find out a lot about who you are and why things were the way they were. And the thing that I'm most proud about this book is the number of people who say that your book taught me how to do this and also inspired me to research my family and interview my eldest relatives.
It sounds like writing this book changed your life.
It did change my life. It gave me an understanding of how the past impacts the present. And the reality is, I see history everywhere I go, and we see the marks of slavery and Jim Crow. But the good thing is, we can control the present and the future. But in order to do that and to change and to move forward as a society, we have to understand the past. We can't erase it.
What do you hope readers take from this book that might change their own life?
I want people to lean in to the tough parts of the family conversation. You know, I took the DNA test and found out that my DNA was 20% from Wales, and ended up contacting the white side of the family, right? Because of slavery, 20% from Wales, contacted the white side of the family, and they opened up 400 years of archives to me. One of the people I actually was a guy who I actually knew for 30 years, was my cousin. And that's the thing, the American story is a very complicated story, and it's time for everyone to come together and start to use genealogy in a unifying way to study our history.
Well, Lee Hawkins, thank you so much for talking to us. Congratulations on this. His book, I Am Nobody's Slave, is in bookstores now.